Okay, good morning everybody, and this is part 3 of that trailer restoration project. And in this part, what I decided to do is I thought it was going to be really easy, is I was going to buy a spare tire and the rim, and I got all this stuff off of eTrailer.com, and I also bought, the mounting bracket in order to mount the tire. And I thought, well, this is going to be quick and easy, and I didn't really want to mount the tire inside of the trailer at all. And I thought I'd mount it to the frame somewhere, and I'm going to change the picture and I'll show you. This turned out to be a little bit more of a headache than I thought, and I'll show you why here in a sec. So in this part, we're going to talk about how I mounted that spare tire on this trailer frame. I'm going to switch pictures, show it to you where it's in my driveway and where I began to work on it, and I'll go through my headaches. Here we go. Okay, in this picture you see where I've got some tube steel, and I made this bracket, and I thought I was clever, and I would just weld this to the frame. Then I would attach the mounting bracket that I bought, and I'll show you here a picture in just a second, and everything would just fly together. The problem was because of the angle iron being so wide that when that mounting bracket went on here, it didn't give me the reach that I needed to mount the tire. I didn't realize it, so my mistake was I thought I was clever, and I welded this thing up pretty good, and I had to cut this stuff off and free this bracket and mount it another way. So let me change the picture. I'll show you what I mean here. Okay, so the picture over here on the left is showing you how I mounted it on the first go around, and I had to cut it off. And then I turned around because of the depth of that angle iron, and I remounted it to the front side. That's the picture you see over here on the far right. So then it would work. Okay, it wouldn't work before, like I said, it threw the depth off, and when I went to mount the tire, it just wouldn't go on there correctly. And this is the mounting bracket. So you can buy these mounting brackets anywhere. I think I got this off of Amazon. And like I said, I got the spare tire, which I'll show you in a minute, and the rim and all that off of eTrailer.com. I used my welder. I tack welded it on here. You can see the little tack welds. I made sure this time that the tire would mount because I wasn't as clever as I thought the first time around. And I didn't want to mount this on the inside of the trailer and take up any of that, space. So it turned out where it worked fine. I'll show you some pictures here in a sec, and we'll talk about it. But it's an easy bolt-together mounting bracket. It's kind of a no-brainer type thing. The part that took me a little bit of time, you can tell when you look at the picture, I had to add another piece of tube steel in order to extend it out, into that angle iron. And I'll show you a better picture here. Let me just change it up. This picture is a little bit better. It's not the best picture, but you can see where I had to increase the width of that steel, like I said, from that angle iron. So you can see where I put two pieces of that tube steel together, and I tack welded all this at the moment, and I just fit it all in there to make sure that everything was going to work the way that I thought, and it does. So I went ahead and I mounted my tire and so forth after that. So what you're not seeing in the picture is, all the final welding. And like I said, I made the mistake on the first go around. You can see here where all those burn marks are on the inside, and you can still see the welds that I have to grind down and make smooth again before painting. But lesson learned. I always sit and preach about tack welding and fitting first, and I turned around and did the opposite of that, and I kind of paid the price because I had to get in there with a 4.5-inch angle grinder and a cutoff wheel, and I had to cut these welds, and I had to break this thing free, and then I had to weld another piece of that tube steel, like I said, to extend the depth in order to mount it on the outside. And let me show you a picture here again of the outside. You'll see what I mean. Okay, so I went ahead and I posted the picture over here on the far right again, and you can see from the left and the right, what I ended up having to do. Then when I was done, it didn't take a lot of time. I'm not trying to make it sound like it did. It really didn't. I got in and I cleaned up all these old welds, where I had cut it free, and I cleaned it up on the inside, and I sanded it and I prepped it, and got it ready for painting. And then on, this front side that you're seeing over here on the right, I went ahead and I test fitted, the tire, the rim, and so forth to make sure it would fit. Let me show you a picture of that. Okay, you'll see over here on the left how I mounted it, the brackets here, and I tightened it up pretty good. As a matter of fact, I started to bend this bracket. So what you don't see in the picture is I had to loosen it up. I kind of whacked it with a hammer and bent it back out. Then I re-secured it on here. And I cleaned all of this up. I wiped it with acetone, and I shot the railing just for a little ways with the white paint, and I kind of completed this section. with the white paint and so forth. The only thing I have to do is I have to go back in here, and I have to, with my 4.5-inch angle grinder, I have to take down all these weld marks that you see along the rail, and I've got to clean up the bottom along here. But the bottom, you'll see, has got its first coat of bed liner on there. We'll talk about that in the next video, but it wasn't going to hurt anything, the overspray, because I knew I had to go over everything again, rather, with, you know, another coat of bed liner, so I wasn't worried about the overspray. So we went ahead and we cleaned all of this up, and it looks like the picture on the upper left here, and everything turned out fine. Now, the next thing I had to do after that is I had to fix that fender well. So I'm going to show you a picture of that and tell you what I did to, you know, to fix that. But this is the final thing mounted. You can take a look on the upper right over here. It's got a piece of diamond plate. So if you take a look at the picture on the left, the mounting bracket itself just came with that galvanized metal in those holes. And what I did is I cut a square piece of diamond plate. You can see that in the picture on the left if you look in towards the wheel well part of it. And I cut that, and I went ahead and I welded that onto the bracket that I bought. And then that enabled me, like over here on the right, I mean, to go ahead and mount this tire the way that I wanted it to. Because actually, I don't know what went wrong when I bought the mounting bracket. I could have bought it incorrectly or something. The holes didn't line up. So rather than send it back and go through all of that, I took a piece of about 1/8 inch thick diamond plate. I cut it in a square so that it would fit in smoothly and easily on the back side of that tire rim. And once it was welded on there, I drilled the holes through it, like you see over here on the right, so that the holes from the rim and the spare tire would line up. And I put the bolts in it, and I tightened it up, and it all came out fine. But this was a little bit more trouble than I thought. I didn't think about running into the problems about the bracket and the welding, you know, on the inside of the trailer versus the outside. And then once I got to the outside, like I said, I had to compensate for the thickness in that angle iron, and I had to double up, you know, that tube steel in order to make it stick out far enough to use the mounting bracket. Then when I had the mounting bracket on there, I realized I guess I purchased the wrong thing or something, I don't know. And I thought, well, I'm not going to send it back, it works perfectly fine. I'll just cut this diamond plate. And that's what I did, and this is how it turned out. And I'm happy with the way that it turned out. So let's go ahead and move on to the fender repair. Okay, you can see here in the picture on the left, you can see those flash marks, those black flash marks. That's where I tack welded this fender. It was kind of bent in. So what I had to do is I had to take the tires off. I used a jack, a floor jack. I jacked it up. I took the tires off of it. And then I had to turn around and bang on this thing. And again, I used just 2x4 blocks of wood or whatever I had laying around and that rubber mallet. And I went along beating on this thing until I got it almost straightened back out. And it's not perfect, but it's damn close. And then the welds had broke. And the only way to get to the spot welds and to, you know, re-spot weld it was I had to remove the tires. And then this is where the sheet metal comes down, touches the frame on, you know, the inside under that fender well there. So I had to get in there, which wasn't a big deal. And I had to tack weld them along, and I tack welded it up real good. Put the tires and rims back on, and then I turned around, I came to the inside of this, and you can see where the bed liner goes along there. So this is only the first coat, and like I said, in the next video we'll talk about the bed liner, but I wasn't too worried about it. It was just the first coat. So then I went ahead and I started to clean up this whole area and get it ready for painting. So what I did is I went along all this sheet metal, both the fender on the outside and the inside, and I used my 4.5-inch angle grinder, and I touched up all the welds that I had to. Then I got my random orbital sander. Now I'm still using that 80 grit disc on the 4.5-inch angle grinder, and I'm using 80 and 120, just depended on what I had laying around. And I depended on how bad the surface was. I got all that surface rust off of here using my random orbital. It didn't take me that long. It's just a matter of just sitting there and just doing it, and make sure you wear a dust mask and you got your protective equipment on. And I got this thing all done, and then I hosed it all off and I got it ready for painting. So let me go back and I'll show you this other picture, and we'll wrap up this part of the video, and then we'll move into the one on the bed liner in the next video. Give me just a sec. Okay, I changed the picture back to this one here, which is what I use for the beginning of the videos, because this shows you, you know, the two tires, and these are the ones I had to take off to get to that sheet metal, and you can see it in the picture how it comes down and attaches to that angle iron of the frame. So this is where I had to get in there. I had to work with pounding it back the best I could. Kind of hard in some spots, but different sized, you know, blocks of 2x4, 2x6s, and that rubber mallet. Like I said, I got it all repositioned and I tack welded it, and I weld prepped. Okay, I got in there with my 4.5-inch angle grinder, 80 grit disc. I hit the sheet metal where I could. I hit the angle iron where I could, and I cleaned it down to steel. And then I went ahead and I used my MIG welder, and I just tack welded everything back along underneath here. Then I put the tires and rims back on there, and that's what we did for this part of the project. Okay, I'm the home handyman. I hope you still follow me through this trailer restoration, and I'll see you on the next video, and we'll get into the truck bed products that I bought and what I went through, which was kind of an easy part of the project, but a little bit more labor intensive, and then we'll move right along. All right, so anyway, I hope you click subscribe. I hope you keep following me. You folks have a good day. I will see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.